Good evening, everyone. Welcome here to a special edition of Out of Turn 4. Of course, this is our NASCAR Silly Season special episode. I'm Brian here. Coming up, we are going to discuss where I think everyone will end up for 2023. We'll also have our schedule prediction for the NASCAR Cup Series. Of course, we're still a few weeks out from knowing the true NASCAR Cup Series schedule. Again, all the news that, of course, so I'm just going to give a full disclosure for the NASCAR schedule, for the predictions in general. I'm going based on rumored headlines right now. I'm also going on my own speculation, much like it was on our regular show when we did the IndyCar one. So it's very similar here, same kind of rules. Again, don't take this too seriously, but consider it kind of speculation. But before we do that, I do want to get to some of the headlines to ease up on Tuesday, of course, and these are big ones here. Alex Palou has been sued by Chip Ganassi Racing for a breach of contract, and the team has also announced another announcement that they will be seeking a new driver for 2023 for the number 10. And this is where I think Rinus VeeKay comes into the picture. Of course, we know Rinus VeeKay not under contract yet for 2023. We know Callum Ilott is. So maybe that's the potential. I've also heard that Stingray Robb might go up for HMD Motorsport to the 18, and maybe they'll loan out David Malukas for a couple years to Chip Ganassi Racing. I've heard those two options are very real possibility, but I think in all likelihood, Rinus VeeKay, again, if you missed our IndyCar Silly Season special, or IndyCar Silly Season predictions in one of the episodes a few weeks ago, I had said that I think Rinus VeeKay would be their Joseph Newgarden, and I maintain that opinion, of course. Huge upgrade for VeeKay. We know what he's capable of week in and week out. He's capable of winning, and he just needs the right team to be able to do it. And I feel like that Chip Ganassi Racing would be that team. We did mention Callum Ilott. Of course, he was the driver being watched by Chip Ganassi Racing. Well, he is back with Juncos next year. He has announced he will sign a multi-year extension with Juncos Hollinger Racing, which is good for that team. They get to build with a young driver and build up their program a little bit more. Unfortunately, I don't think the results will be there, but that's not to say that he's not going to be in the picture, obviously. More IndyCar news. Joseph Newgarden has been cleared to race IndyCar at IMS this weekend. Of course, for those who don't know, he was involved in a pretty bad crash at Iowa, collapsed after leaving the care center and hit his head, so we weren't sure if he was going to be cleared. Santino Ferrucci was named the standby driver. He is no longer needed, as he will now compete solely in the NASCAR Xfinity Series race for Sam Hunt Racing and Toyota. Again, good to see Joseph Newgarden back. Again, I was hoping that it was going to be Santino Ferrucci in the number 2 for that team. Again, even though he's not racing for the team, I will say the fact that Team Penske considered him to be the substitute driver says a lot about Santino, and it should say to the rest of the garage, if Team Penske believes in this guy, and he didn't just pull someone from the IMSA program to come help out, or any of the other programs for that matter, then maybe we should be giving this guy a chance to really prove himself and sign him to a full-time deal for 2023. Back to the NASCAR side, which is supposed to be the main topic of this episode. Kurt Busch, he has been sidelined yet again. He is still not medically cleared by NASCAR. He will not race this weekend at the Indy Road Course. Ty Gibbs once again will fill in. And, of course, we'll talk my thoughts on Ty Gibbs in a little bit, but just, again, hoping for speedy recovery for Kurt Busch, and hopefully we'll see him back next week when the NASCAR Cup Series takes on Michigan International Raceway. Alright, that's all the headlines. So now we get to have some fun. So now you guys get to see what my predictions are for silly season. Let me just flip my camera over. Alright, there we go. So here are my silly season predictions for the 2023 NASCAR Cup Series season. Again, here's the criteria. Please do note the future of the driver might not be publicly known or heavily speculated yet. I don't think that's much of a concern. Most of the speculations have already come out. The drivers listed are most likely on the move or out of a ride after the season. Not necessarily. I'm going team by team in this one, so I guess I didn't do any modification to this page from the IndyCar one. Of course, my guesses on destinations are based on pure speculation, educated guesses, and of course the rumors that we have seen and the confirmed stuff. So I'm going in order based, I kind of went in a weird order, but we kick things off with the full-time rides for 2023. And of course, I kick things off with Team Trackhouse, where I see absolutely, and I and everybody else have seen absolutely no changes coming that should be of note. Of course, Ross Chastain and Daniel Suarez. Now, you might be asking, why aren't you including the Project 91 car? Because I'm going to focus on the part-time rides. Sorry, that was a box cutter that just fell. But I'm going to focus on the full-time rides for this part. The part-time rides will come up in the next part of the episode. So stay tuned. We will have the Project 91 predictions coming up real soon. And the other thing is, if a driver is not pictured, it does not mean that the team is going to necessarily cut down a ride. It's just that it's a possibility of a timeshare. But again, I anticipate this team will be a two-car team once again, full-time two-car team. And those two drivers, of course, will definitely be back in 2023. Moving ahead, we go to Team Penske. Similar situation. I think Austin Cindric will be back in the number 2, Ryan Blaney in the 12, Joey Logano in the 22. So no changes for Team Penske in 2023. Moving ahead, Richard Childress Racing. I don't believe there will be any changes despite Tyler Reddick's decision to leave for 23XI in 2024. So again, these two will be back. I wouldn't be shocked to see a third car on a part-time basis, but again, I'll cover that a little bit later on in the episode. Moving on, of course, now we go to Stuart Haas Racing, and this is the one I think you're going to want to pay attention to because I do have a little bit of a bombshell to cover. So, of course, first off, I think there's going to be no change. Kevin Harvick will be in the number 4. What I will say is I think this will be his final NASCAR Cup Series season, and I wouldn't even be shocked if Rodney Childress is no longer his crew chief at the conclusion of this season. Here's where the surprise, well, not a surprise, but Ryan Preece, I think, will be the driver, the number 10, before moving over to the 4 in 2024. Again, he has Hunt Brothers Pizza sponsoring him. He's had United Rentals backing him. I don't think that Smithfield will be back to sponsor the number 10, but I wouldn't even be shocked if Haas throws their logos on for a couple races to field the 10. No change in the 14. I believe Chase Briscoe will be back, as he should be. So those 3 will be the 3 main drivers, and you might be asking, who do you have in the 41? I have Kyle Busch coming over from Joe Gibbs Racing, and Kyle Busch will drive the 41 Gene Haas sponsored car. Of course, this is based on the rumor. Of course, it was confirmed by multiple outlets that Kyle Busch is in talks with Stuart Haas Racing right now about driving one of their open rides next year. It may very well be the 10, but I don't see that being a possibility. I think the best option for him is the number 41. And again, Cole Custer has not put up any good results since winning at Kentucky. He's really not lived up to the expectation that this team has. And Kyle Busch, bringing him over from Toyota would be huge for this team. Of course, it's been well known Stuart Haas Racing has struggled the last 2 years. They really haven't gained any traction. It'll help Chase Briscoe develop as a driver. It'll also help Ryan Preece develop as a Cup Series driver. Where the issue is going to be is between the 4 and the 41. Because again, it's been well noted in the past, Kevin Harvick, Kyle Busch, they don't like each other. So will they butt heads? Will this hurt team chemistry? That's going to remain to be seen if this does happen. But I predict that Kyle Busch will be in the number 41 come next year. Moving ahead, Hendrick Motorsports, no changes. Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott, William Byron, Alex Bowman. Those 4 will be back in 2023. Roush, Fenway, Keselowski, same thing. Brad K's back, so is Chris Buescher. But I will say, I think Chris Buescher is going to be on the hot seat next year. So I think we're going to have to keep an eye on that number 17, see if maybe a potential driver change comes for 2024. And again, I say this because Chris Buescher has not really won anything yet. He hasn't been close. Again, I know this team has struggled, but could Brad K opt for a younger driver? We'll see as things go forward. Spire Motorsports, I have Corey LaJoie returning to the number 7. I predict it'll be another season where the seat will be rotated for the 77 if the 77 returns next year. To be honest, I wouldn't be shocked to see this team cut down to 1 car and let Corey run, and then potentially just build up their truck program full-time with maybe Raja Carruth driving full-time in the 7 truck. But Corey LaJoie, I think, is the guarantee that he will be back next year. Joe Gibbs Racing, again, pay attention to this one. This one you'll want to see. Again, Denny Hamlin, he'll be back in the number 11. But here's where it gets interesting. I think Ty Gibbs will be in the number 18. Against my better wishes, of course. You guys know very well I do not like Ty Gibbs in this situation. I don't think he's Cup ready, even though he ran pretty well last week. I'm still not buying him as a legitimate Cup driver. Of course, I think he'll be in the 18, though. It's clear that he is the next guy up. It's clear that he is Toyota's reserve driver for the Cup Series. Because otherwise, John Hunter would have been in the 45 last weekend, and John Hunter would have been in the 45 this weekend at Indianapolis, if that were the case. Martin Truex Jr. will be back in the number 19, as he had stated, and then, of course, Christopher Bell in the 20. I do think, though, this will be Martin Truex's last Cup Series season with Joe Gibbs, and potentially for his career. I wouldn't be shocked if that is the possibility. Of course, he's been speculated. It's been speculated he wants to retire, and of course that's where all eyes will be on the 19 going into 2024. Moving ahead, Rick Ware Racing. I think Cody Ware. Okay, again, it's his dad that owns the team. He'll be back. That's a guarantee. If he wants to come back, he'll be back. And then again, the 15 will just be a rotated seat, just like it was this past season with probably David Reagan and a few other Ford development drivers. We'll cover a little bit of that in a moment. Colleague Racing, I think Justin Haley's going to be back. Justin Haley, let's be honest, he's really been under the radar. He really hasn't been talked about much, but he's really put together an average season. He's put together about an 18th average finish. He's not totally in bad shape this year. I think, again, Colleague likes Justin Haley, or else they wouldn't have promoted him. So I think Justin Haley will be back, and I think he'll improve. Again, this is a brand new Cup team running full-time at tracks they haven't run before outside of the road courses and the super speedways. So they're still learning, and I think Justin Haley I think he'll be back. There's no question. to that. Wood Brothers, Harrison Burton, he's going to be back, and I'm pretty sure it was already confirmed by Roger Penske entering this weekend to Indy. So we'll move on to 2311 Racing. I forecast no changes. I think Bubba Wallace, let's face it, like him, hate him, it doesn't matter what you think of Bubba Wallace, okay? He's got enough financial backing now to be able to stay in a ride. And Kurt Busch, it was said that he's welcome to stay at 2311 so long as he's wanting to drive. And that's the kind of career reassurance that Kurt Busch needs, of course. But I do believe this will be Kurt Busch's final season in 2023 before Tyler Reddick takes the 45 in 2024. Front Row Motorsports. I believe for the first time in a few years, there will be no changes. The only change, here's the thing. Now, Michael McDowell, he's going to be available. He's had a career year minus the 100-point penalty he just suffered for, of course, modifying pieces to the car. But he had a career year. Again, there's a possibility a big team could lure him away. But I think for Michael McDowell, it would be safe to stay at Front Row Motorsports. Again, we saw what happened to Matty D. We saw what happened, there with Levine Family Racing. We saw what happened with the Wood Brothers. Again, I think if he goes anywhere else, based on his age, how long he's been in the series, and kind of his career stats, he'd be kind of a bridge driver. He'd be making a mistake moving on. Todd Gilliland, he'll be the first driver in a few years to run a second season in that number 38. Again, his dad David ran for this team. His dad David also runs David Gilliland Racing in the Truck Series. I would be shocked to see a big change here, because I don't think Todd Gilliland will be out of a ride so long as his dad has the connection with Bob Jenkins and Front Row Motorsports. Petty GMS Racing, here we go. We're going to have our second Rookie of the Year competitor. Noah Gragson will take over the number 42 for Petty GMS. Again, he'll bring Black Rifle Coffee with him. He'll bring Bass Pro with him. And, of course, he will team up with Eric Jones, who has had kind of a big year behind the wheel of that number 43. He's a win away from being legit, of course. But one thing I am going to predict, and this is going to be a wild card prediction, I think that Noah Gragson will be in a transition year. I think one of these drivers is going to be doing a bridge year. Okay, now we know Eric Jones is signing a multi-year extension, but I think, of course, Tyler Reddick's going to be leaving Richard Childress Racing. One of these drivers could very well get bought out by Richard Childress. I wouldn't be shocked if it was more Noah Gragson than Eric Jones. And here's why. Of course, Noah Gragson has funding. So I think that's the big one. But I wouldn't be shocked with Eric Jones because he puts up results. Okay, so it could go either way. I'll bet you one of them gets bought out of a multi-year deal with Petty GMS, and in exchange for maybe, again, tech alliance with Petty GMS and RCR, maybe they'll up the ante to take one of these drivers away from Petty. But again, Noah Gragson, Eric Jones, those will be the two drivers for Petty GMS. As we move on to JTG Doherty, we already know who's going to be in that ride, and that is Ricky Stenhouse Jr. No surprise. Live Fast Motorsports, I believe this is the last full-time team that we have. I'm putting only one driver up because, again, we know it's BJ McLeod's team. He's going to be back with the team. Okay, but again, I think he'll share the ride with other drivers. What I wouldn't be shocked to see, though, is Cole Custer drive the 78 on a part-time basis while he takes a step back to the NASCAR Xfinity Series. So again, I think BJ McLeod, there's no doubt he's going to be the primary driver, but potentially Cole Custer, potentially, Josh Williams maybe in a few races, Andy Lally, Those are real possibilities. But now we move on to the part-time rides for 2023. And of course, we kick things off with Team Hezberg. I don't think there's going to be any shock here, or at least the non-charter teams. But I do believe this team will up their schedule next year with Laurie Hezemans, potentially run the full schedule. I know they're trying to. So, again, I don't forecast a change there. I believe Laurie Hezemans, one of his parents runs the team. So, he'll be back. The money team, I think they're going to up their schedule next year, and Kaz Gralla will be the driver of the number 50. But again, I think they'll run probably 10 to 12 races if they can find sponsorship. So I wouldn't be shocked to see Kaz Gralla back in the car. Beard Motorsports, okay, and I put RCR. And I'm telling you, I think it's going to be Austin Hill driving for the 62 team. I do believe, though, that Richard Childress might use this car as a third car. Of course, it basically is a glorified third RCR car. Austin Hill's already won 2 races this year, both on super speedway style tracks where the drafting is important. And he's won races in those capacities. It would be a huge move for Beard Motorsports to get a driver like him to drive at Daytona and Talladega, because much like Brendan Gaughan, he can definitely win. He is a threat to win those races. Maybe Sheldon Creed drives a couple races for this team outside of Daytona, Talladega. Austin Hill, I imagine, will run 4 to 6 races for this team in 2023, of course, because they are going to be losing Noah Gragson to a full-time Cup opportunity, as is Colleague Racing, who shares Noah Gragson for the season. Oh, shoot, I didn't do this, but yes, I guess I confirmed one thing. Elio Castroneves will be behind the wheel of the Project 91 car, I think, at Daytona. Again, he has already said that he's working on a deal for the Daytona 500, and Project 91 and Trackhouse, or the Trackhouse Project 91 team, they announced they want world-class drivers. Elio is a world-class driver, okay? He has proven it time and time again, and, four-time Indy 500 winner from Brazil, I wouldn't be shocked to see him behind the wheel of that car. But another face, and this one's been circulating a lot, and Justin Marks confirmed that he would allow this guy to drive. Jimmy Johnson will make his NASCAR Cup Series return in 2023, but he will only run the Coke 600 in order to, do the Indy Charlotte, or the 500 and 600 double, joining Tony Stewart, Robbie Gordon, and others in that rare feat. So again, I think we'll see the 7-time champ back. The other drivers I think we could see again, I think I mentioned it. Scott Dixon, I think we could see. Of course, Roger Penske is confirmed the doubleheader will be back next year, most likely. So maybe Scott Dixon drives that car at Indy. Maybe we see Daniel Kvyat driving. Maybe we see, Sebastian Vettel's retiring from F1. Maybe he's the one who comes over to the States to run. That's a possibility. Because they want world-class drivers. I feel you don't have to look much farther than that. Of course, Ricardo's on the hot seat at McLaren for F1. Maybe he comes over to the States and drives as well. Again, I think this team will run primarily road courses, but they will run the marquee events as well. And again, the reason I mentioned Scott Dixon, of course, again, Justin Marks and Chip Ganassi have a good friendship. I wouldn't be shocked if they worked out a deal to allow this to happen for Scott Dixon to run the IndyCar race on Saturday, the Cup race on Sunday. We move on to Nice Motorsports. Maybe this is in conjunction with Project 91, I don't know, but I think Carson Hocevar will drive the Daytona 500, and he'll drive a few other races behind the wheel of a NASCAR Motorsports car. It's very clear they want to move up to Cup. They want this guy in the car. And again, he's a top prospect, I think, for Chevy right now. But there's really no seats open for him to move up the ladder. I wouldn't even be shocked to see Carson Hocevar maybe be the driver for Beard next year. That could also be a big possibility. But I think the more likely option is that Nice will maybe borrow the 91 for those races again. Justin Marks drove for Nice. Both Trackhouse drivers drive for Nice or have driven for Nice in the past. And because of that, I think they could have a good working relationship and use Nice Motorsports as a feeder to the Cup program for Trackhouse. Of course, I know they don't want any Xfinity involvement. Maybe Trackhouse expands into the Xfinity. Time will tell what happens. Junior Motorsports. I know they said they don't want to run full-time in 2023. What I do see, though, is them running part-time. And I don't think there's any other driver in the garage, including Sam Mayer, that would get this ride. And there's other than this guy, Josh Berry, I think will drive a handful of races if Junior Motorsports does declare to run a Cup car. But I feel like he will be the primary driver. I don't think Junior will drive unless it's in the Fox portion of the schedule. Maybe Justin Allgaier will drive a couple races, but I think Josh Berry would be the primary driver. He wants to move up to Cup. He doesn't quite have the funding, but maybe Hellman steps up and backs a Junior Motorsports Cup entry on a part-time basis. But I wouldn't be shocked to see Josh Berry drive in the 500 in a few other races in 2023 for Junior Motorsports. Other names to watch right now. So we move on from the part-time racers to names to watch. John Hunter Nemechek, of course, tops that list. Again, a second season at KBM in the trucks. Maybe he's in the 18 for Joe Gibbs next year. Maybe I'm wrong about Ty Gibbs, but I imagine if he goes there, it will be a bridge year. He's been mentioned to go to Stuart Haas Racing. I don't feel that team's at a competitive state right now that John Hunter would feel comfortable going over to that team, but Mobil 1 has the backing for John Hunter Nemechek in the Truck Series, so that is a possibility. But again, I feel like if he goes to Gibbs, it'll be a bridge year for Ty Gibbs, and then he's gone. Because Chandler Smith's going to move up to Xfinity. There will be another ride open, in 2024. Maybe he moves over. Maybe he stays in the 18. But I think Stuart Haas would be the likely destination. What I think is the most likely thing to happen, maybe, just maybe, John Hunter drives in the Xfinity for Joe Gibbs. But I think this guy is more likely to do so and potentially drive in a part-time Cup entry next year. Trevor Bayne, of course, he's had a bit of a career resurgence at Joe Gibbs Racing. He's been in contention for wins. He's been in contention week in and week out. He's really shown that he still has the talent to drive. He might be more on the Xfinity side next year. Maybe Colleague picks him up. Again, Colleague has mentioned they don't know if they want to rotate drivers or run full-time with one or with two full-time drivers. Could Trevor Bayne be the guy? I don't know. Zane Smith, of course, he was mentioned it was mentioned before Trackhouse bought Chip Ganassi Racing that Zane Smith would be the driver of the number 1. Then, of course, Chip Ganassi got purchased, and Zane Smith didn't have a ride. Now he's in the Ford program. Maybe he drives the 10 next year. Maybe he drives the 41. Maybe he moves up with Row Motorsports in a bridge year. So many possibilities. But again, so few seats for Zane Smith unless he moves up to Xfinity to drive, the number 98. But I don't know if they're going to be willing to do that. Maybe Front Row will move him up to Xfinity next year, and Front Row will start up their own program. Again, Ford needs a lot of help in the lower series. The final driver I have, Parker Kligerman. Of course, after his win at Mid-Ohio, he had stated that he has been talking to other teams about running in 2023. I don't know if it'll be a full-time campaign for Parker unless it's at Ware Racing, but I think it'll be an increased schedule either with Spire or Ware, and he'll run a handful of cup races, possibly a full-time truck season at Hendrick Motorsports. So again, that's the silly season predictions as far as drivers go. Now you might be asking, what do you see as the schedule for 2023? Well, that is simple. I don't see much changes going on. Of course, I think we'll kick things off. That's a no-brainer. Daytona will kick things off. I think then we kick off the West Coast Swing, Auto Club Las Vegas Phoenix. Those are the next 3 races. Then we go to Atlanta, I think, for the, I forgot what it is, but it's going to be the 500-miler. Race 6 will be at COTA, just like last year. I don't think there's many changes. Race 7, I think we'll see at Richmond. Then race 8, again, Easter weekend, we will see the Bristol Dirt Race. I think that will be the next event. We'll then go to Martinsville for race number 9. Race 10 at Talladega. Race 11 at Dover. Race 12, I think Kansas will slot in there before Mother's Day weekend, and then we will go to Darlington for the Goodyear 400. After that will be the Coke 600. Of course, the All-Star will be before that, potentially on another track. Maybe Kansas gets it, who knows. But from what it sounds like, it won't be at Texas, and I don't think Texas will get its race date back. So, again, I think then we'll go to Charlotte for the Coke 600. I'm only focusing on the points races. I'm not focusing on the All-Star race or any of the preseason races. 15, I think we'll go to Michigan. I think they will move up in the schedule, and Gateway will move back. You'll see in a second where I moved Gateway. Race 16, I think Sonoma is going to round out the Fox schedule as it has for the last handful of years. We will then kick off the NBC portion at Nashville Superspeedway. We'll then go to Chicago Street. Of course, that'll be the 4th of July weekend. So I anticipate there will, again, that's a confirmed event. Race 19, I think we go to Atlanta. So that'll be the second race date there. Race 20, we'll go to New Hampshire for the Cran 301. Race 21 will go to Pocono, just like last season. Then, of course, race number 22, the Indy Road Course. That has been confirmed for 2023. We then go to Texas. I think Texas will be moved out of the playoffs this year. Again, it's not put on a good show. The All-Star race was atrocious. And the last handful of years, Texas just has not put on a good enough show to keep a prime cup date on the schedule. Race 24, we'll have our second visit to Richmond Raceway. Race 25, we'll head to Watkins Glen, just like last season. And then, of course, we'll round out the regular season at Daytona, as we have for the last few years. Then I think we'll kick off the playoffs once again with the Southern 500. We will then go to Gateway, Bristol, and again, Gateway will get a playoff race, I do believe. They did put on a decent show in their first cup race. I feel like that'll be a prime Saturday night race, as will Bristol in the first round of the playoffs. Then we kick off the round of 12, and I think they will go to Kansas for their second visit. They will then go to Las Vegas for their second visit, and then the round of 12 will end at the Charlotte Roval. Now you may be asking, well, where's Talladega in this whole mess? I think Talladega gets a round of 8 spot. Again, bold and innovative. And I feel like Talladega would be a nice deciding race for the Championship 4. It'll add excitement. The drivers won't like it, but I think the fans will really love it if that race is in the round of 8, because it will be unorganized, unhinged chaos. We then go to Homestead. I don't think that race will change. I feel like that race is perfect right where it is. Then, of course, we go to Martinsville. Again, I don't forecast any change there. And then, of course, the confirmed race at Phoenix Raceway. So that is my predictions for this year's silly season. And, of course, I want to thank you all for watching. Again, these are my predictions. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And I will see you on Tuesday when we return for another edition of Out of Turn 4. Until then, goodbye, everyone.